9 spine-chilling babysitting horrors revealed. Terrifying encounters with the sinister unknown. Sarah could hardly believe her good fortune as she stepped into the Harringtons' sprawling, luxurious home. Soft, golden light spilled over the plush couches and gleaming kitchen, wrapping her in comfort. It felt like a strange paradise compared to her own cramped apartment bursting with mismatched furniture and the chaotic laughter of her 3 roommates. She sank into the warmth of the Harringtons' glow, momentarily forgetting the crushing weight of her student debt, listening to the laughter of the kids, Lily and Ben, as they played with their toys. But as the evening deepened, shadows slithered through the corners of her mind. The atmosphere shifted. An eerie humming drifted from somewhere below, smooth yet unnerving, like a ghost trying to sing a lullaby. Sarah froze, heart pounding against her chest. Just the house settling, she told herself. But the creaks and thuds echoing down the hall had a sinister rhythm that made her blood run cold. The beautiful family paintings on the walls twisted her stomach, a family that seemed too perfect in tightly orchestrated poses, staring with cold, vacant eyes. Then came the ping of her phone. An unknown number glowed ominously on the screen. Her stomach twisted again, a shiver racing down her spine. It had to be a prank. Anxiety tightened its grip as the hairs on her neck rose. The children were tucked in, but a sense of dread loomed larger than ever. Sarah's night had only begun. In search of distraction, she drifted toward a locked cabinet she had spotted while cleaning the playroom. Curiosity surged, prompting her to peer through the glass. Her breath hitched. Inside resided a collection of peculiar dolls dressed in clothes oddly reminiscent of her babysitting uniform, each faded outfit an unsettling echo. As she studied their lifeless faces, a chilling thought gripped her. These dolls looked alarmingly like previous babysitters, a sense of dread washing over her. What did that mean? The tension crept in again, this time harder and sharper. She grabbed her phone and called Mia, hoping for a friendly voice to chase away the creeping dread. Instead, the conversation turned grim as Mia mentioned the unsolved disappearances that had haunted their peaceful suburban neighborhood. Names of missing girls floated through the phone like ghosts. Sarah's heart raced even faster, eyes darting to the pristine front window. The thought of hidden horrors lurking just beyond the glass made her want to scream. Every instinct screamed for her to escape. She stepped closer to the door, her anxious fingers trembling around the doorknob. But an ominous sensation stopped her. Someone was watching. In the shadows of the porch lights, she thought she saw a figure almost too familiar. Mr. Thompson, the kind neighbor, had helped her with groceries earlier. What if he wasn't what he seemed? Her pulse quickened, paralyzing fear clawing at her throat. With a jolt, she bolted back inside, breathing heavy and fast. Then the humming returned, more frantic, like a sinister hymn echoing from the basement below. Lights flickered, plunging her into a suffocating darkness. Panic flooded her senses, her mind racing as she questioned everything. Who could she trust? Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As she gathered her breath, ready to confront the horrors swirling around her, the hum erupted into a cacophony of desperate notes. It beckoned her, a siren song that wailed through the house, slashing through the last remnants of her rationality. Alone, trembling, and hunted, Sarah felt the sinister threads woven through every smile in this picture-perfect community tighten around her. The walls of the house seemed to close in, shadows dancing just beyond her sight. What dark truth lay hidden, waiting for her to discover? The noise echoed louder, a haunting melody that seeped under Sarah's skin. Each note felt like a finger tracing her spine, sending shivers coursing through her body. Thoughts of innocence slipped away, swallowed by the darkness that now surrounded her. The humming grew, eager and clawing, and a chill raced through her veins. She was losing herself in its eerie allure. Was it mere music, or something more sinister? Heart pounding in her ears, Sarah clutched her phone tighter, the dim light flickering like a dying flame. With trembling fingers, she texted Mia, hoping for a sign that wasn't fear meet here, now. A heartbeat felt like an eternity. She paced, lingering at the edge of the hallway, staring down the ominous corridor that led toward the basement. What secrets lay buried beneath those floors? In the creeping silence, she heard a distant dragging sound from below, like a heavy, reluctant shuffling. Her gut twisted as the images on the wall seemed to copy her growing anxiety. The Harringtons' photo gallery loomed ominously, the family's smiles now grotesque. Were they ever truly happy, or were those smiles mere masks hiding the truth? Torn between dread and a need for answers, she tiptoed toward the basement door. Each creak of the floorboards beneath her felt like 1,000 eyes were watching, as if the house itself was a living entity, taunting her. What lay beyond those heavy doors? She could feel the pull of curiosity gnawing at her, but dread pushed back harder, wrapping around her throat. You can't go down there, she whispered to herself, but her body betrayed her. One slow, tentative step after another brought her to the door. The wood was cold beneath her fingertips as she turned the knob. It creaked, echoing in the stillness a cry from the depths. She stepped through the threshold, and the air shifted. A musty scent filled her lungs like a suffocating blanket. As she descended the stairs, darkness wrapped around her. The low glow of her phone transformed shadows into twisted shapes. Every inch felt charged with a raw electric fear, pulling at her consciousness, raising every primal instinct to flee. The basement floor was littered with objects draped in ominous shadows: a broken doll, a cracked mirror reflecting nothing but darkness. At the far end, a faint glow pulsed. Sarah edged closer, her heartbeat echoing louder than the insidious hum. Then, a sound shattered her concentration. A soft, childlike giggle floated through the room, bright but chilling. Not the familiar laughter of Lily and Ben. It felt sticky, like honey mixed with dread. Panic surged. "Hello?" she called out, the word shivering from her lips like a tiny prayer. The laughter stopped. Silence swallowed the air, thick and heavy. Her breath caught when a figure emerged from the corner. A girl, perhaps 10 years old, with hollow eyes that seemed impossibly deep. Clad in a faded dress, she looked like one of the dolls, too still, too lifeless. It was as if she had stepped out of a painting, trapped in a moment long forgotten. "You shouldn't have come down here," the girl said, voice sweet yet utterly devoid of warmth. The air turned cold, and the lights flickered, shadows swirling as madness beckoned from behind her. What were the Harringtons hiding? The night thickened like a bruise, reality blurring around her. The girl stepped forward, eyes glinting with something sinister as it dawned on Sarah the dolls weren't just dolls. They were warnings. Something shifted behind her, and when she turned, the true terror awaited. Someone was behind her. The hum turned to a scream. It was time to find out what really lay in wait at the Harringtons' house and who she would have to confront to survive the night. The moment Sarah spun around, her heart crashed against her ribs, a wild creature desperate to escape. Shadows stretched and danced, twisting faces morphing into grotesque grins. A silhouette loomed in the dark, a figure too large to be a child, its outline sharpening against the flickering light. "Who's there?" she barely managed to whisper, her voice trembling on the edge of panic. The giggling returned, now with an echo, as though mocking her fear. The girl remained still, her eyes widening as if she could see past Sarah into the void. "Her name is Mia," the figure said, stepping into the dim light. It was a woman, her face eerily calm, but something in her gaze betrayed an unsettling knowledge. "You shouldn't have come here. You've awakened their hunger." "What do you mean?" Sarah's pulse raced as she tried to read the woman's expression. "Who are you?" "Someone who knows this house," the woman replied, a sharp edge in her tone. "And you should forget what you think you see. They feed on fear. They allow relish in your terror." The girl tilted her head, a haunting smile stretching across her lips. "She's right," she chimed, her voice carrying a melodic, yet unnerving quality that sent chills sprinting down Sarah's spine. "They love it when you scream." Suddenly, a commotion cracked through the oppressive air, the sound of frantic whispering, heavy footsteps, and scraping. A wave of instinct propelled Sarah forward, adrenaline igniting her limbs. She bolted for the staircase, but her legs felt like lead, the shadows slipping around her ankles like tendrils. "No! Don't leave!" the girl shrieked, her voice slicing through the thick, oppressive silence. "You can't go! Not yet!" The woman's expression shifted, her eyes darkened, pulling Sarah back as if she were a moth entranced by a flame. "It's too late to run. You must confront what's buried here. Otherwise, you'll never escape." As Sarah wrestled with her fear, trying to comprehend what the woman was suggesting, a loud crash resounded from behind her, freezing her in place. An unseen force slammed against the wall, shaking debris loose. "Stay with us." The girl reached out, her voice sweet yet commanding, echoing off the walls as if the house itself spoke. "Or else you'll be just like them." "Who?" Sarah shouted, terror climbing her throat as she glanced around desperately. The walls seemed to pulse, breathing in tandem with her fear. She felt their desperate hunger, a collective yearning emanating from the broken dolls and scattered trinkets, each one alive with malevolent intent. A shadow darted past her, an ephemeral figure sliding into the darkness. The basement door slammed shut, locking her in with the giggling girl and the knowing woman. Panic surged, releasing fresh waves of terror. She was trapped, the living embodiment of every childhood nightmare crashing down around her. The woman stepped closer, the shadows curling around her like hungry limbs. "This is where it all happened. You need to remember? Sarah's voice wavered, torn between confusion and instinctual flight. "What do I need to remember?" A cacophony of whispers filled the air, swirling around her like a storm, fragments of lost lives, shadows of memories that crept in. They began to coalesce, forming a chilling narrative she had been trying to forget. "The thing that keeps you here," the woman's voice dropped to a whisper, "is what you fear the most in that moment of horror." Sarah felt it, an inkling of dread unfurling deep within her. A truth that lay dormant all along. The air grew thicker, choking her with unfulfilled memories, echoes of her own forgotten past. The girl giggled sweetly, tilting her head to meet Sarah's panicked gaze. "What happened to Lily and Ben will happen to you unless you face it suddenly." The power flickered, embodying the weight of despair as it plunged the basement into utter darkness. The whispers grew frantic, and the shadows surged. The walls seemed to close in, malice dripping from the ceiling. What awful truth lay buried within her past, and could she confront the darkness before it consumed her? Entirely? With every fiber of her being, Sarah grasped at the strands of the past, straining to follow the thread before the chaos pulled her under. The darkness enveloped Sarah like a thick fog, smothering her attempts to breathe. Panic clawed at her throat as she reached out blindly, feeling nothing but the chilling air. The whispers crescendoed, a maddening chorus that echoed off the walls, twisting meaning into madness. "Mia," she gasped, the name slipping from her lips like a desperate prayer. "What happened to them?" The girl's voice came from somewhere deep in the dark. "You know! You just need to remember." It was taunting, almost demanding. Sarah's memories felt like a jigsaw puzzle, pieces scattered. Fragments of laughter, screams, a fire too far to grasp. A cold sweat coated her skin, and she instinctively pressed her back against the wall, seeking some semblance of comfort in the solidity of the bricks. But even the walls felt like they were breathing, shivering with unseen life. Then came the sound, soft, deliberate footsteps that padded across the floor. Each step sent jolts of dread through her. She pressed her eyes shut, willing herself not to scream. Yet the reality remained, she was not alone in the dark. "Look at her," the woman's voice slithered through the shadows, sounding closer now. "She is terrified, and that makes them stronger. Don't you want to break free?" "What do I do?" Sarah pleaded, opening her eyes once more to the blackness. The outline of the woman loomed close, her face barely illuminated, but clarity was a cold grip in the pit of Sarah's stomach. "Remember the fire, remember Lily and Ben." As the woman spoke, the air thickened with an electrical charge, a memory rushing toward her like a tidal wave. Images flooded her mind, heat, screams, flickering lights behind closed eyes. They had been in the house, her cousins, Her responsibility, but she only remembered the panic, the horror of their absence when the flames consumed everything else. No! She screamed, desperation lacing her voice. I couldn't save them! A laugh echoed suddenly, shrill and piercing, bouncing against the walls like a wild echo of madness. You left them! Mia chimed, her tone playful enough to make the hair on Sarah's neck stand on end. You'll always be here because you didn't do enough. Stop! It erupted from her, raw and filled with a rage she barely understood as the shadows twisted closer. In that moment, the shadows recoiled, forming a wave against her anger. The whispers quieted, slinking back like cowardly animals. It was a trick. Sarah recognized it now. The fear was their power, just as the woman said. What do you want from me? She demanded, trembling but resolute. The shadows pulsed, a darker wave sweeping through the basement. Face it or become a part of us. Something shifted in the darkness. A deeper shadow emerged, a form writhing and twisting. Sarah's heart raced as she caught glimpses of what lay within, vaguely familiar, their eyes wide and hollow, mouths stitched into eternal screams. Help us! They called, not as one but as a chorus of tortured souls. No! Sarah shouted, scrunching her eyes tight against the horror as she felt fear coil around her heart, squeezing, threatening to crush her. The woman stepped forward, and for an instant, Sarah caught the glimmer of hope in her eyes. To save them, you must make a choice. Face your fears, or lose yourself to the shadows forever. Breathless, Sarah took a step forward, a choice hanging in the air like a charged current. What do I have to do? But as the walls trembled in response, the ground beneath her shook violently, threatening to pull her into its depths. Would she find the strength to face the truth and save those she had lost? As the shadows closed in, the question lay heavy. Was the cost of her freedom too high? With a heavy heart and clenching fists, Sarah realized the confrontation had only just begun. The shadows lunged at her, a living entity hungry for more. Sarah felt the walls close in, the air turning thick and oppressive. She stumbled but quickly regained her footing. Anxiety surged through her, each heartbeat echoing like a drum signaling impending doom. What do you want me to remember? She shouted, desperate to pull something, anything, from the depths of her fractured mind. Everything, the woman whispered, stepping closer, her face flickering in and out of visibility like a dying light bulb. Cold dread seeped into Sarah's bones. She might have sworn she saw the woman's lips stretch into a frightening smile, but the featureless darkness played tricks, making it impossible to differentiate truth from illusion. Ben! Lily! She cried out, her voice a raw edge of panic. Where are you? The distorted figures twisted and howled in response, their features contorted in pain. Help us! They pleaded again, but this time the word dripped with sorrow, mingling with the smoke of her memories. Startled, Sarah's heart faltered. Her last vivid recollection flickered like a dying candle. She saw it, flames swirling around her, the crackling sound of destruction overwhelming her senses, the glance she shot backwards at the figures retreating into the smoke. Their faces, filled with fear and confusion, pleading for her to come back. No! I can't go back there! She screamed, eyes darting around, searching for an escape from this haunting nightmare that tethered her to the past. But the woman held her gaze steady, urging, You must confront what you've buried. Only then can you free them. The ground trembled, shaking as if responding to her heated panic. The shadows writhed, taunting and cruel, whispering every horrible thought she ever buried. You're responsible, they hissed, voices merging into a cacophony of blame. You could save them. The walls of the basement inched closer, suffocating, consuming her. Sarah's breath quickened. I was just a kid. I tried. Trying isn't enough, came the soft, sinister voice of Mia, now just behind her, dangerously close. You left them to burn. Guilt curled in her stomach like a snake, coiling tighter around her as the truth began to take shape. She had tucked those memories away, afraid to face the weight they carried. As she stepped back, the shadows surged forward, stretching hands that gripped her ankles, their touch like icy chains pulling her down. No! With fury coursing through her, Sarah steeled herself. She would fight against the suffocating darkness. Somehow, a spark ignited within her in anger at her own cowardice. Back off! She shouted, her voice echoing through the room, amplifying into something fierce. The shadows faltered, recoiling as her resolute rage pushed against their darkness. What do you want, Sarah? The woman hissed, drifting closer as the others fell silent. What do you truly seek? Freedom! She cried, her breath a desperate gust. I want to break the cycle. Then step into the fire, the woman said, her voice a dark melody. Let it consume you, let it flow through you. Only then will they be saved. The walls quaked, a deep rumble spreading through the basement, vibrating through Sarah's core. She saw the ghostly forms of her cousins again, flickering like dying embers. The flames danced in front of her, an abyss of pain and fear. Do it! They urged, their voices layered with hope and despair. With a heart that thundered in her chest, Sarah took a step forward, barely able to breathe. Could she do it? Could she really face the truth and emerge from the wreckage? A new memory pushed against her mind. She saw herself running, reaching for those she loved in an ocean of smoke. But then, from the corner of her eye, she sensed something shift, an ominous presence that grinned just beyond glimpse. Let the fire burn, came its whisper, slithering through the dense shadows. Fear gripped Sarah once more as she hesitated, caught between the flames and the void. Would she plunge into her past, risking everything to save them, or would she be engulfed in darkness forever? As she stood on the precipice, time froze, and the choice loomed: did she dare to take the next step into the unknown? The air thickened, and Sarah felt the walls shaking with a renewed intensity. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, but something deeper tugged at her heart, a desperate need to confront the truth. The shadows around her crackled with anticipation. The darkness breathed in time with her racing heartbeat. Do it! The figures urged, their voices now a haunting chorus. We're waiting! Don't listen to them! Hissed the woman, weaving like smoke in front of her. They'll lead you to despair. Sarah curled her fingers into fists, battling the confusion gnawing at her. Each figure flickered with vivid intensity, and for a moment she was back in that house, lost in flames while her world crumbled around her. Freedom! She shouted again, a frayed ribbon of hope clinging to her words. I will free them! The basement quaked violently, and cracks splintered through the walls, dark tendrils creeping closer, satisfied with her turmoil. Something skittered along the walls, an almost sentient movement promising danger. The woman's eyes were locked onto Sarah's, and in that deep void where her face should have been, something sinister twinkled. Step towards the fire, Sarah, she murmured, the words like honey laced with poison. Let go of your fear. Accept the flames. They will cleanse you. The visions of Ben and Lily blurred, their faces twisted in expressions of desperation and fear. Help us, Sarah! They called, their voices a haunting echo tethering her to the nightmare. Tears formed in Sarah's eyes, each drop weighed down by unbearable guilt. No! She gasped, clutching her head as images bombarded her screams. Smoke! The terror of those moments seared into her memory. I didn't mean to leave you. Then let it burn. The woman rasped, her form flickering wildly. The basement roared with darkness, raging like a tempest around them. The shadows curled and coiled, hungry for her acknowledgement. Sarah took a trembling step forward, heart racing, thoughts chaotic. I'm not afraid, she challenged, a spark igniting inside. Prove it! The shadows hissed, summoning bursts of darkness that whipped at her, wrapping around her arms like chains. At that moment, the air exploded with heat, flames licking just out of reach. The fire danced with alluring beauty, beckoning her like a lover. Step in, it whispered, seductive and cruel. You'll know freedom, pain will vanish, and you'll save them. The temptation felt like a noose tightening around her neck. What if she did? What if she faced her past head on? A shudder rippled through her. What if it destroys me? She breathed, the words slipping into the air, a whisper lost amidst the chaos. Then you won't have to carry it anymore, crooned the woman like a lullaby, her silhouette swaying in the shadows. "You're stronger than you know." As Sarah teetered on the edge of her decision, the basement shifted again, twisting into a labyrinth of despair. With every heartbeat, she felt the weight of her memories pressing down on her, threatening to drown her in their enormity. "Choose!" They all shouted now, the chorus of reflections morphing into a terrifying symphony. "Will you save them, or will you let the darkness consume you?" In that moment of undisguised terror, Sarah grasped the truth. The fire represented her memories, the pain she had fought to bury, and yet still burned within her. Could she face it? In that flickering light, shadows stirred. An unexpected flicker caught her attention. There, beyond the swirling darkness and flames, another figure emerged. A child's small frame, barely visible through the haze. "Help me, Sarah," the child cried, voice trembling. And then the shadows roared, threatening to swallow her whole. Would she step into the fire to uncover the truth, even if it meant facing the past that had haunted her? Time hung suspended as dread wrapped around her heart like a vice. What had she truly unleashed? The child's voice seeped through the chaos like water through a crack. "Help me, Sarah." Each word was a dagger, cutting through the fog of confusion. Fear clutched at her throat, tightening like a vice. The image of the child flickered, a ghost caught in the darkness, suffocating beneath the weight of her unfulfilled promises. "Where are you?" she shouted, desperate to find clarity. The shadows danced in response, swirling and twisting, swallowing the echo of her voice. "Show yourself." Another fleeting glimpse, a small hand reaching toward her, shivering and alone. It sent a cold shudder down her spine. Was it Ben? Was it Lily? "Don't listen!" the woman cried, her tone harsh and piercing like the crackling of the flames around them. "They are lies crafted to ensnare you in despair." "No!" Sarah screamed back, the weight of her guilt pushing her forward. "You're wrong! I won't let them down again." She took another step through the malevolent fog, the heat drawing her closer to the inferno at its heart. But with each step, the shadows leered at her, contorting into figures that filled her with dread. They twisted, morphing her past into grotesque shapes. She saw herself, kneeling in front of the burning house, surrounded by the haunting faces of those she couldn't save. They urged her on, whispered loathsome words that made her blood run cold. "Accept it, embrace the fire." The flames roared more fiercely, flickering higher, promising release, and a surge of desperation clawed at her chest. She could taste the soot, the acrid smoke swirling around her, enveloping her senses. It was intoxicating, laced with the bitterness of her failures. "Sarah! Help me!" The child's voice resonated like a siren call, sweet yet dripping with sorrow. A surge of determination ignited within her. "I'm coming!" she cried, racing toward the image through the quaking chaos. The walls screamed, buckling under the weight of her memories. In snippets she saw the fire rip away her past, claiming Ben and Lily, their laughter replaced with chilling cries. Had they reached for her too? Had she stood by, allowing it all to burn, to turn to ash? With every heartbeat, their voices forced their way through the shadows. "You let us down, you let us burn, stop!" she shouted. "I'll free you." But the taunts grew louder, the shadows surged. "Dare you?" The woman laughed, the sound sharp and grating. "Do you think you can conquer your torment?" Sarah's heart thundered in her chest. She had to. She could picture it now, a rush of light, a way to shatter the darkness that bound them all. "I will not be dictated by shadows," she roared. She surged forward, dragging her feet through the chaos, fighting against the oppressive pull of despair. The flames flickered wildly, almost as if they understood her resolve, bending toward her courage. Then, in a sudden flare, the inferno exploded, illuminating the basement with a blinding light. For one precious moment, everything froze, the shadows halted, the woman's figure paused mid-movement. The heat enveloped her, cleansing, purifying, but just as quickly it vanished. She stood alone, panting in the sudden silence. The flickering had subsided, leaving her suspended in confusion. Where was the child? Where were Ben and Lily? The desire to confront her demons burned inside her, but the haze of uncertainty returned, thick and suffocating. From the depths of the silence, a whisper threaded through the air. You chose the fire, but we are not done. What emerging horror awaited her when the flames revealed the truth? Would she plunge deeper into the inferno to unearth the darkest secrets hidden within her own memory? Sarah's breath quickened, the acrid smoke clawing at her throat, festering in her lungs. The whisper lingered, curling through her mind like fog, dark and viscous. It bore the weight of truth untold. You chose the fire, but we are not done. The air crackled with energy, tight and thick, urging her to move. Her heart thundered, every beat reverberating with dread. She had felt that sudden flare. It pulsed inside her, a beacon. If she could just find it again. Ben? Lily? She called, voice trembling. The silence that followed was deafening, more potent than any scream. Swallowing hard, she made her way forward, pushing against the oppressive darkness, each step a battle against the surging shadows that wanted to pull her back. Help me, the child's voice emerged again, fragile and desperate, full of yearning. Was it real? Or just another trick of the malevolent haze? Where are you? Panic surged like a tidal wave, threatening to drown her. The darkness hissed in response, a swirl of memories, doubts, and relentless whispers. You didn't save us. Stop it! She shouted. I'm here now. Igniting her resolve, she pressed deeper into the pitch-black shroud. She stumbled, her foot catching on something unseen, panic racing through her veins. The moment passed, though the shadows were still there, lurking just outside her sight. What if they were right? What if the child was gone forever, lost in her inaction? Sarah, the voice was closer now, chilling yet sweet. It drifted through the dense fog, twisting and turning, each syllable a haunting lullaby. Sarah, come. A figure emerged from the blackness, a small outline, eyes wide, glimmering in the dark like two frightened stars. Heart in her throat, she took another step forward. Lily? As she reached out, the child's figure flickered like a candle in the wind, oscillating between existence and void. Help me, Sarah, came the plea, softer now but still filled with terror. No! She lunged forward. The shadows shrieked, a cacophony of cries biting into her skin, a sinuous web pulling her deeper into despair. Embrace her fate, the woman's voice echoed, distorting through the dark. You've already let them down. You can't save anyone. The walls around her seemed to pulse with malice. They wept memories, her failures, her doubts manifesting as grotesque shadows that screamed for her attention. Each visage morphed into the faces of those she'd lost, swirling in a whirlwind of regret. Sarah, the call was followed by a crack of thunder. Enough! She shrieked, the sound piercing through the hollow air. But the dread pulled at her, inching closer. What if they were right? What if her past was a cage, and she was powerless to escape? Let it go! Suddenly, the flames roared back to life, a wall of heat crashing over her, igniting her fear into a fierce blaze of resolve. She thought of Ben, of Lily, of everything she'd ever wanted to save. I won't let this end here. Each word burst from her lips like wildfire, fueled by desperation and love. Every ounce of strength converged within her as she lunged toward the flickering figure, hands outstretched. But the warmth of the flames twisted, and the shadows pushed back harder than ever, a nightmarish torrent tearing at her. Just as she felt her grip on hope slip away, the figure transformed, the child's form flickering until it was almost unrecognizable. You chose the fire, now faced the blaze. With that, she was engulfed, the inferno exploding around her as shadows howled, their cries mingling with the flames. Time fractured, her reality splintering as the fire wrapped around her, and she fell. What awaited her when she emerged? Would she find Ben and Lily, or would she face a terrifying reckoning, the true cost of her choices? Falling felt eternal, like plummeting into a void that had no bottom. The heat swirled around her, stinging her skin, pulling her in all directions. Sarah's mind raced alongside her heartbeat, thoughts clashing like thunder. Wake up! Wake up! She shrieked into the spiraling chaos. Suddenly, she hit something solid. The impact knocked the breath from her lungs. She gasped, the smoke still clinging to her throat, as her senses struggled to adjust. It wasn't the familiar ground she'd hoped for. Instead, a polished wooden floor lay beneath her, slick and cold. The air was thick with a different kind of darkness, a stale, suffocating atmosphere that pressed down on her. She staggered to her feet, her mind clouded with panic, the echo of that haunting voice still reverberating in her ears. "You chose the fire, Lily." "Ben!" she cried again as she spun, heart racing, desperation clawing at her chest. She was alone again, the shadows merely a murmur in the distance. But there was something else, a whisper carried on the wind. "Sarah," the voice rose anew, delicate yet powerful enough to pull her toward it. It beckoned from the furthest corner of the room. A flicker of light illuminated the space around her, crude drawings sprawled across the walls, disfigured faces looming, all punctuated by wide, terrified eyes. They held stories of despair, their mouths frozen in silent screams. "Please!" Her voice was weak as she moved toward the source. Walls closed in like a hug, intimate yet terrifying. The whisper grew stronger. "Sarah, find me." With each step, the air thickened, mired with long-forgotten memories. The shadows twisted. Something tugged at her from behind. Was it a hand? A ghost? She whirled around, convinced she would see something vile, but nothing met her gaze. Just silence. She pressed on, fueled by purpose. The light pulsed, a beacon in the abyss, guiding her closer and closer. Was this the way out, or deeper into the nightmare? "Sarah, find the truth." The plea morphed into a chilling echo as the sight before her solidified. She stumbled into a small, dimly lit room, bare except for a single chair facing a tall mirror. Puzzled, she hesitated. The mirror was tarnished and cracked, but something glinted amid the shadows. Images that don't belong to her swirled inside, like lost souls desperate for escape. Memories, laughter, shouting, cries for help flooded her mind in a chaotic wave. Each was a fragment of what she had lost, pulling her deeper into a sorrowful trance. "Stop it!" she shouted, both to the memories and herself. But they surged again, a tide relentless, dragging her under. In a frenzy, her eyes darted. There! On the chair, something lay draped across it, a teddy bear, familiar yet eerie, its eyes seemingly glimmering with a life of their own. She reached for it, feeling an inexplicable connection. The moment her fingers brushed the soft fabric, the whisper returned, urging her to look into the mirror once more. With urgency, she turned, breath catching as the glass rippled like water, revealing a darkened scene. Ben and Lily, faces filled with terror, reaching out as shadows loomed over them. "No! This isn't happening!" Panic surged. She stumbled backward, clutching the bear. The room quaked, walls vibrating with energy. Shadows swirled violently, their whispers racing into a crescendo. "You didn't save them! You can't save anyone!" The bear vibrated in her grip, sending a jolt through her. "Only you can break the curse." The mirror cracked, a sharp sound that sliced through her panic, a message transmitted through fractured glass. In that instant, clarity pierced the fog. "Break the curse." But how? With a newfound urgency, she clutched the bear tight, heart hammering. "Get out!" a voice thundered. Was it her own? Or the whispers threatening to consume her? She glanced back at the mirror, the twisted reflection still beckoning. What did she have to lose? Steeling herself, she charged forward, bracing for whatever awaited her on the other side of the surface. As she reached, the mirror shattered, shards exploding outward like glassy shards of fate. What would emerge in the chaos? Would it be salvation or doom? Everything slipped away, reality fracturing, as she plunged headlong into the abyss, the darkness hungry for her essence. With a rush of adrenaline, she screamed, "I'm coming!" But the question remained, would she find Ben and Lily or face a horror worse than the fire? The shattering darkness enveloped Sarah as she plunged through the remnants of the mirror. She felt weightless, time suspended as the fragmented pieces glimmered around her like stars bursting into life. Panic swelled in her chest, the past clawing at her mind like a trapped beast, desperate to escape. Then, with a sudden jolt, she landed. The air was sharp, heavy, and smelled distinctly of smoke, an all too familiar fear tightening her throat. The warmth of fire flickered in the distance. "Sarah!" A familiar voice rang out, cutting through the haze of her confusion. It was Lily, her face pale but alive, her eyes wide with concern. "Help us! Lily!" Sarah's heart leapt, adrenaline surging through her veins. She scrambled to her feet, and with renewed fervor, rushed toward her cousin. And there, by her side, was Ben, thin and terrified but real, standing in the ghostly light of their childhood home, the shadows of despair swirling around them like dark magic, an ethereal promise made of sorrow. But something was off. The flames crackled dangerously close. "You were gone!" Lily's voice trembled with fear as Sarah approached, dread wrapping around her like fog. The shadows encroached, looming larger, their sinister whispers vibrating through the very air they breathed. "Not again!" Sarah cried, her voice punctuated by the howling of the wind. "We need to get out of here." She reached for them, pushing against the invisible barrier that separated them as their terrified faces twisted in the throes of unreleased agony. "Sarah, listen!" Ben's voice strained with urgency. "The fire, it's a lie!" A cacophony of choking cries clashed around them. The shadows pressed in, feeding off her growing terror. The fear tightened its grip, squeezing her heart. "What do you mean?" she gasped, confusion spilling from her in waves. "The fire, it ties us here," Lily shouted as if her voice could shatter the darkness. "You must confront it." Guilt twisted inside Sarah, squeezing her chest tighter. "What if I can't?" "The curse can only be broken by facing the truth," Ben implored. With a deep breath, Sarah steeled herself. Memories flooded back, the flames, the anguished screams. The whispers grew louder, wrapping around her mind like a web, urging her to bury herself in fear. But she couldn't do it. Not again. "Let us face it together," she urged, heart racing, the darkness stirring at her determination. The shadows hissed in disapproval, rolling like waves against her feet. "No! They'll consume you." Tilting her chin upward, she stepped into the rising heat, determination burning brighter than fear. "I want to let you win." In that moment, the fire roared back to life, magnificent and wild, illuminating the room with blinding clarity. Sarah felt its heat at her back, swelling into a physical force that united her and her cousins, arms linking tightly. The flames writhed, threatening but oddly familiar. "We are together!" Sarah shouted as she faced the fire head-on, each word punctuated by her pounding heart. "We will remember together!" The heat intensified, the shadows recoiling as they grasped for the remnants of fear that bound them. She felt Ben and Lily's hands squeeze tighter around her. "Let it burn!" Sarah proclaimed, her voice steady, echoing against the walls, where darkness and light collided. The flames surged forward, each flicker welcoming and vengeful, consuming the shadows that had whispered, that had pulled them down into despair. Screams erupted, integrating themselves into the inferno as reality tore apart, retreating back into a veil of nothingness. In that blinding moment, there was freedom. The heat wrapped around them like a parent's embrace. The shadows shrieked, distorting and screaming, seeking escape. But they could not resist. With a deafening roar, the shadows collapsed into themselves as the fire danced, pure and bright, devouring every vestige of fear. And then silence. Sarah opened her eyes. The three of them together and whole stood on the soot-stained ground of the old house, now vacant, the warmth of its fire extinguished, a gentle breeze carrying away its remnants. "I remember," she gasped, her heart racing. A wave of relief washed over her like cool water after a drought. "We're free." Lily's voice, bright and sweet, rang like music, echoing through the ruins. "But what about the curse?" Ben's brow furrowed in concern. "It's broken," Sarah reassured him, tears glistening in her eyes. "We faced it together." Ben and Lily stepped forward, their faces glowing with youthful buoyancy, their fears receding into the shadows above. The home, a ghost of what it had been, now felt peaceful, a delicate shroud of understanding lingering in the air. As they stepped outside into the amber glow of twilight, a rush of emotions flooded Sarah's heart. The heaviness of guilt began to lift. Let us go home, she whispered, grateful to leave behind the darkness they had once known. And as they walked, hand in hand, the last remnants of dread fell away, replaced by a profound serenity. Together, they stepped into the sunlight, leaving behind the shadows that had haunted them for too long. But remember, this darkness lurks at the edges of our minds, waiting for fear to return. It's always there. Stand strong, face your fire, break the cycle. Finally, as they turned toward the horizon, a question lingered: what new adventures awaited them beyond the night? For all of you watching, hear this call. You need to subscribe now to the channel to catch the next exclusive stories. Don't miss a second, smash that like button to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this finale. And please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Remember, only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions. Don't wait even one more second. The story continues with you.